Earth has fallen. Humanity has nearly been wiped out by a being known as the Natiba. From the stars above, hope descends in the form of angels. The airborne squadron descends upon Earth with the goal of eliminating the Alpha Natiba in District 3 and either securing or eliminating the Elder Natiba. Upon entering Earth's atmosphere, an attack is launched, wiping out a majority of the squadron's ships, forcing the survivors to launch drop pods. Of these drop pods comes Eve, the protagonist of Stellar Blade, who we follow in her mission to kill the Alphas and the Elder. Joining her is Adam, who asks for her help in helping rebuild one of the last strongholds of humanity, Xion. And Lily, an engineer from the 5th Airborne Squad whom you rescue from an Alpha. Together, they explore the area of District 3 to hunt the Natiba and bring life back to Xion. But what else would they discover about the world, and what remains of humanity? This is Stellar Blade, a new action game by developer ShiftUP, who are best known for their gacha games Destiny Child and the ongoing hit Goddess of Victory, Nike. Stellar Blade bucks their gacha trends and aims to provide a new AAA level experience featuring intense action combat and beautiful visuals. The game is a bit of a linear adventure with linear levels, though there are open areas that give you the freedom to explore as you please. There are also side missions to complete, which will have you revisit areas of the game. With the higher production values in combat, is Stellar Blade a game worthy of standing amongst its peers? Is there beauty among these beasts? For the purpose of this review, I will be reviewing Stellar Blade's PC version on 3 different builds: my main PC build, my laptop, and the first generation Steam Deck. Specs are all listed down below. Let us see what works in Stellar Blade in the good. Let's just get it out of the way now. Eve is gorgeous. That said, you can really just say the same thing about this entire game, as it is an absolute visual treat for the eyes. It shows the power of Unreal Engine 4 and shows it's not fully outdone by its next iteration. I should note that when I first booted up the game, it was automatically set to the lower graphical settings, so if anything looks washed out, make sure the graphical settings are correct. The areas you visit in this game are nice to explore due to the high graphical detail, though the bulk of my enjoyment came from the open areas. It's very satisfying being able to explore to my heart's content and discover new areas and collectibles during Eve's journey. She has nice move sets and acrobatics when traversing around the different environments. Accompanying this exploration is the music in this game, and it is one of the big highlights to Stellar Blade. Each track outside of combat is pleasant to listen to as you explore the various environments. They also fit various moods with the lively theme of Xion. To the dark and mysterious Matrix 11 theme. One cool thing this game does is shift into a more energetic tone dynamically once you enter combat with the Natiba, then return back to the original once combat finishes. It's a cool attention to detail that I always appreciate in action games like this. Since we're on the topic of combat, the combat in Stellar Blade is fun to do. The game plays similarly to a Souls-like, but more on the Sekiro side if anything, since there is an incentive to parry attacks and do combos rather than just block. It's satisfying studying enemies' attack patterns to parry or dodge them at the correct time. When you parry them enough to put them off balance, you can initiate a retribution move, which goes into a cinematic view of Eve performing a takedown move, which can take away a chunk of health from the enemy. This mechanic is also present in the various bosses you fight in your adventure, which make up the highlight of this game. The bosses really test what you have learned in this game and provide some of the best combat segments and set pieces that you will see. You also earn XP in the game, which can go into your various skill trees to unlock new moves and enhancements for your already existing moves. Combat feels even better once you have unlocked your full moveset and start performing Eve's various techniques in sequence. When it comes to performance, Stellar Blade ran nearly flawlessly on my desktop PC. On my laptop, I needed to turn the settings down for a smoother experience, and my NVIDIA software automatically configured the game to the best possible settings on low. Still, I was able to bump it up to medium configuration and have a relatively smooth experience with some choppiness. Thankfully, the Steam Deck has its own preset settings in-game that it automatically configures to for the smoothest possible settings, giving PC players on lower-end hardware a chance to experience the game. Another aspect I like of Stellar Blade is how the hub world of Xion evolves over the course of the game, with citizens beginning to walk around and communicate with you. There are some that offer Eve additional side quests, and you get to learn more about the world you're in, since Eve is a bit of a fish out of water during the course of the story. Interacting with certain vendors and buying things from them increases your affinity with them, which allows for you to purchase new items. These items can include material to construct items with, or additional cosmetics, which lead to the last thing I want to talk about. There are tons of unlockable cosmetics that you can add to Eve. From the different outfits you can construct, to the earrings she can wear, to even the glasses. There's even an option in the main menu to adjust the size of her ponytail, or remove it entirely. This game allows you to customize Eve's looks to your various preferences, but looks can indeed be shallow, so we'll be removing this makeup as we look at the bad. Eve may be a looker, but her and her friends' development can feel pretty shallow. After you reach Xion onwards, you only get drip feeds of development from the main cast, and at times can feel like an afterthought. It does leave room for players to discover the lore behind the world, but it unfortunately comes to the detriment of its star cast. Though, when you do get to the latter parts of the game, you find out why, but there's still opportunities for the group to hang out together that unfortunately feels missed in the overall game. Also, if you're familiar with science fiction stories, some of the beats may feel predictable to you, though the story is still enjoyable. I mentioned that the combat is very fun, however this is after you gain access to a majority of your moveset, as this game is really slow at unlocking them all. Some moves are XP locked, which makes sense, while other moves are progression gated, which can take hours to reach depending on the pace of your progression. Speaking of combat, Eve has many ways to attack with her sword and gun, but that's unfortunately it. It would have been nice to wield additional melee weapons as Eve, and even though the sword does get the job done, you're still waiting until near the halfway point to fully unlock the potential of her sword. Her gun works fine enough, but trying to switch ammo can be a complete pain since you have to hold down the D-pad while aiming. You also have to hold down the D-pad for switching combat items and health items, but for ammo you have to hold both it and the aim button down while changing ammo with the right control stick, which can feel very awkward. Since we're talking about items, I got the least amount of use out of the combat items as they felt very situational and hampered the pace of the combat. It felt more efficient to just use the combat moves you already learned to get the job done in a more satisfying way. It is satisfying to take down enemies in this game, but it becomes more annoying to have to go up against groups of enemies. Typical smaller Natiba groups aren't too bad to handle, but having to go up against this halberd-wielding robot that is always surrounded by turret enemies is really annoying to deal with. It doesn't help that this group is one of the main enemy groups you face in the Great Desert. There are about 7 main areas to explore, but unfortunately only 3 of them are actually open areas, and one of those 3 is the hub world of Xion. The other 2 locations are the Wastelands and the Great Desert. Now exploring these 2 areas is fun enough, but it would have been nice to have other open areas to explore with different biomes as those 2 areas feel relatively the same. Would have been nice to also include something like a lush jungle biome or snowy mountain area. There is a snow area, but it's very short-lived. Even though it would have been nice to have more open areas, it probably would have exacerbated this next issue where traversing these areas feels like a chore. Eve moves at a decent speed, but I would have liked to have some type of transportation device to cover ground in these areas faster, especially for some of the quests you do. Speaking of quests, one big point of annoyance when completing them comes from your map, but not in the way you might think. To start things off, you have a map you can access from your menu, but outside of that, there is no mini-map on your HUD. This will cause you to constantly pause your game to check to see if you're going the right way. Thankfully, this is alleviated by the scan feature of your drone, however, this problem goes even further. Remember how I said 3 out of the 7 areas are open? Well, the remaining 4 linear areas do not have maps of any kind you can reference when completing quests in those areas, which makes trying to reach the objective to complete them a chore. You have to trial and error different camp locations until you find the one just within distance for you to reach it from. Another point of annoyance from this game are the pitfalls. Not the pitfalls themselves, but how the game determines what fall from a height counts as a pitfall or ground impact. Why does this matter, you may ask? One causes you to fade to black and teleport back to the edge. The other causes you to die and forces you to respawn back at the last camp you were at. Having to respawn is very frustrating when sometimes the fall is just barely lethal but still counts for a death in the game. The game runs fairly smoothly for the most part, however I did notice instances of slowdown when playing this on my desktop PC. I couldn't figure out what triggered it since it seemed to happen at random and also went away at random. Thankfully this was few and far in between. One last complaint I have, which is a consequence of this current age of gaming, is the use of yellow paint to mark areas of interest. I understand it helps point players in the right direction, but it is overused in this game to a degree where I am taken out of the immersion. Especially in a setting like Stellar Blade, there are more creative ways to get players' attention to certain areas. Early in the game, you walk down a shopping district where lights to the shop are turned off, except for one. That one shop stuck out to me, which piqued my curiosity to go and explore it, which rewarded me with some item material. There are a variety of inventive ways to get players' attention to where the yellow paint just feels really lazy in this game. Now with all that out of the way, let's take a breather at camp in the opinion. Stellar Blade feels like a game from the past. A game which came from an era where AAA quality not only meant high quality visuals and storytelling, but also gameplay and content. Stellar Blade represents a lost standard to AAA gaming and stands above as an amazing experience through and through. It does have a lot of rough elements, but those don't take away from the positive aspects of the game. There's a lot of things to collect, the combat is fun and addicting, and it's been getting updates recently with DLC content from Nier Automata and Nikke, which range from cosmetics to full boss encounters. If you're looking for a new action game with a beautiful female protagonist, Stellar Blade absolutely delivers on that front, and serves as a reminder to what the standard of a AAA game should be. And now it's time for my rating. I would give Stellar Blade this ladder slide out of 10. Thanks for watching and tune in to the next Infinite Backlog review. If you enjoyed today's review, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe for more. You can check out our other videos or follow us on X, Instagram, and Facebook. Once again, thank you for watching.